Welcome to the new Beyond the Matrix, brought to you as a YouTube movie video format, which is new for me. I am your host, Patricia Cori. Here is where I will bring you my thoughts, the truth as I know it, on things that are questionable, amazing, arguable, thought provoking, controversial, and just a little out there. Are you with me? Let's get this party started.
No adjustment of your set is necessary. Beyond the Matrix.
Ready, set, go. Greetings, everybody. This is Patricia Cori, and I'm coming to you with my program Beyond the Matrix for people who think outside the box of convention. It is intended to be an extension of my former radio show, Beyond the Matrix, which was several years ago, and it was out there, and I got a little bit worn out doing radio every week. So it's been a while, and now I'm back in the video format thanks to technology, which, as you know, if you ever watch any of my programs, I'm always battling with, trying to get around, trying to melt my resistance on, et cetera, et cetera. But, here we go. I mean, this is cool. I'm actually now using Zoom. I mean, how much more sophisticated can I get? So, welcome to Beyond the Matrix. And I have already announced who my guest is today. But before I talk about her specifically, I just want to introduce the field that we're going to discuss, because I think it's so important. I am clearly very grounded person and in love with nature, and I am an alternative healer. I am I'm green, can I say? So we're going to talk about every aspect of plant remedies, from the more accepted traditional ideas of what works for what, to the more galactic connection, which I'm sure my wonderful guest Lea is going to want to talk about. So here we go. My guest today is Lea Jones. She's a medicine woman, and I asked her to explain to me how she would entitle herself, and it was a long list because she does so many things. But I really wanted to focus on her wonderful knowledge and wisdom of, I mean, she just never stops amazing me with her wisdom about plants and herbs and the essence of these beings. So without any more ado, Lea Jones, thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you for having me, Patricia. It's an honor.
It's an honor for me. So instead of reading a rote copy of your background, which is usually kind of staid, just give us an idea of, I'd like to know how you got to working on this level with plants, with herbs, with this incredible knowledge that you are forever growing about this wonderful field.
How I got hijacked by the plant kingdom.
That's it.
Well, I was on the traditional grad school and psychology route. I graduated from grad school in 2008, and you have to do a certain amount in the state of California, 3,000 hours of clinical work it was at the time. It's probably more now because they keep raising it. To become, and then you have to take a state license exam. And what I was noticing is that a lot of times most of the clients that were already suffering from traumatic issues were on cocktails of medication. And I'm going to do this disclaimer now. I'm not a licensed physician. I'm not a licensed doctor.
I'll make the same disclosure when you're done.
Please see your doctor,
dot, and whatever.
That type of advice. But I thought it was interesting because it would be like someone was taking anti-anxiety pill, and then they were placed on another pill, and then all of a sudden they couldn't sleep because these pills were interrupting their biorhythm. So then they were put on a sleeping pill. And so if someone has issues with addiction, that was used to kind of mask over trauma from a like psychodynamic, psychological level. That to me wasn't really helping. And I always had an interest in anthropological studies, what the herbal kingdom calls ethnobotany, probably that little category over there. And so I started looking into what other cultures around the world were doing for thousands of years that they still did today.
Awesome.
And a lot of it is, you know, so much of it is interconnected to plants because these are healing modalities that never separated from the power of the land. And so when you combine that, it's just fascinating, the stories that plants will tell about societies and kingdoms. And I mean, I learned more history on a global level from just researching plants than I did from like, you know, high school K through 12 history class, even throughout the Americas. And it's something that you just never stop learning. You keep just acquiring knowledge.
I know, and you are a library of knowledge. I just, you know, I see your posts and I'm always extremely impressed, which is why I asked you to come on. And speaking of the disclaimer,
Yeah.
I have been screaming a lot lately about meds because, you know, when you hear about children 4 and 5 being prescribed Prozac and
It's getting worse.
of what that means for not only the children, the civilization at large, we can only hope that the kind of wisdom that you hold and possess, and many people who have, I mean, I've been, you know, an alternative. I don't take meds, period.
Yeah.
But I certainly don't know all this intrinsic knowledge that you possess. And it's just kind of like, I'm an intuitive, so I just go for what is available. But we're going to talk about that in depth. And as far as the disclaimers go, I'm going to still say it, you know, yeah, of course, your doctor's going to tell you what you need. And we are not professing in this conversation to be discussing anything to do with medical treatment. But we are talking about enhancing or healing your vibratory signature, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like your starseed guides predicted, what are we, 2018 years ago? Or in the 90s, you were probably getting downloads.
In the 90s. Yeah, 20 years ago, I got the first book, and it was pretty revolutionary at the time, and still the new one is pushing the boundaries out. So we just keep doing what we do. So let us have an overview of you. Before we got started, you were talking about the galactic aspect. Let's just jump right into that. The galactic aspect of the plant community with regard to the shifts on the earth.
Well, because they're gateways. So plants in general, their consciousness and their intelligence is multidimensional. So I find it interesting. I mean, I understand why the focus is on medicinal, why the focus is on cleaning up your diet, which would be considered the culinary aspect of plants, why the focus is on the cosmetic aspects, right? But for me, I just see it like when people separate produce from vegetables, or nutritionists, which are popular now in the States. I always say just study culture, because they're all plants. And in indigenous cultures around the world, they're not like, oh, you know, this is for cooking, this is culinary, this is like vegetables, and you know, they're just plants. So I find that really interesting. But the thing that's different when you study like more along the ethnobotany, indigenous anthropological level, is you'll start to see that the multidimensional intersection of plants used, and actually some of them, it's not ignited, what is the word? Some of them through rituals are like catalyze, it's a back and forth. In ancient Egypt, they would hold rituals to trigger the intelligence and multidimensional aspects within plants. There was always like certain plants that they would bring into ritual environment. I'm pretty sure the blue lotus is one of them, which we'll talk about.
I think it is. And of course, we have these plant medicine ceremonies going on now again, and with ayahuasca and what's the other one? San Juan, I believe.
There's a lot of the medicinal mushrooms, or magical mushrooms, they call them, are also becoming very popular. The peyote is becoming popular. There's more out about diviner sage, which is unfortunately outlawed in a lot of states, and I'll never understand that. Where I live now in Chicago, the state of Illinois outlawed it, and it's sad because it has antidepressants.
What is that? Diviner sage, you call that?
Diviner sage. I can't think of her name, but so the whole concept of medicinal mushrooms for ceremonial purposes is very much integrated into indigenous Mexican culture. And so for the people that the community has designated as shamans in medicinal or in shamanic Mexican culture, they are trained through opening up gateways of their psyches through the use of psychoactive plants. So before they get to a stage of ingesting I keep on saying medicinal, but magical mushrooms, they'll work with diviner sage, Salvia divinora, I think it's called, and it grows in some mountain region. I'm not sure what part of Mexico. Of course, someone that's watching this video will probably correct me and be straight up honest about it, because I have a lot of
friends. Yeah, but the great thing is that they can't correct us while we're live, so
right.
in comments later on.
Mm-hmm. And so what all these do is they're ritualistic in that they cause the designated community shamans to unite with the consciousness and intelligence of the spirit of the plant, and therefore expand their own consciousness so that they can project and promote healing onto the client population that they work with.
Okay, hold on. Let me ask a question here. So, first of all, I want to play the devil's advocate for a minute and ask you, don't you think there is some room for misuse of this vehicle? And don't you think also that it can be, I mean, isn't, in the case of ayahuasca, we're talking about something that's poisoning the body, which is why everybody gets so violently sick to release the poisons. And I have mixed feelings about this, and I'd like to, like I said, play the devil's advocate and ask, what is your perception of how this can be used and misused?
Well, the whole capitalistic pursuit of it, right? Because of all the people fed up with the AMA, but all the people that are fed up with the American medical system and fleeing across the border to look for alternative healing methods. Even one of my favorite medicine women, Rosita Arvigo, she set up her clinic in Belize because she can't do the work that she does down there, which is profound work, especially for women's reproductive systems. She couldn't do that here. So she spends summers in Chicago, and the rest of the year she's in Belize or traveling, giving seminars. But with the ayahuasca, the psychoactive route, I think, as with most herbal medicine, dosage is key, right? I think when you unite with there's a stage in learning about plants where you unite with the intelligence, and so you're actually allowing the spirit of the plant to communicate through you and guide you. It's like, how do all these Amazonian medicine men and women who work in that region, how did they ever find out what's what? Like, ayahuasca is this concoction of various different plants. Like, how did they ever learn that? Like, who told them that? It wasn't a textbook type of dynamic. So there's a lot of psychic and spiritual interconnection to earth communication going on, and in my opinion, the underworld too, right? Because that's a whole realm of every plant that's ever existed, every elemental energy that's ever existed on the earth, every ancestor that's ever existed, the consciousness of that dynamic is trapped in the underworld. And so a lot of these energies are constantly speaking to and through us if we know how to pay attention, if we train ourselves to hear. So when we go back to things like ayahuasca being poisonous, or psychoactive mushrooms being poisonous, it's kind of like, well, the dosage is key. What was the condition of your body before you and your mind, before you and your spirit, right? Before
very important.
Took this, I almost said trip, took this plant medication, or plant medicine, I should say. And how are you caring for the body afterwards? Have you ever detoxed before? I read an article probably a year ago that, certain aspects of American medicine don't even believe that detox is even viable or real. And it's kind of like, are you kidding? It's amazing to me. But
I think that we can preclude, if for the sake of our conversation,
right.
that We're not talking about the American Medical Association approach to just about anything.
Right.
And with all due respect, because we don't want to, get a that gun in the middle of our conversation, but I have mixed feelings about. First of all, I'll start with I did my own plant medicines back in the day when I was a youngster, so I have experience to.
Do you feel that was your gateway opener to be able to absorb information from a multidimensional level? The fact that you took
I'll
that.
say this, back in the days of the journeys of Don Juan, Carlos Castaneda's, which dates me just a bit. This was a whole era of discovery, and there were many other things as well. But I did experiment, and absolutely, I already have a very powerful clairvoyant faculty. So going into what you would call a trip, or well, let's call it a trip for the sake of lack of a better word, perhaps. But for people that have never had the clairvoyant vision, obviously it's an extraordinary leap in consciousness. The question is, what do you bring back from the experience? And is it, like you asked, is that a gateway opener? And that's what you wanted to talk about, isn't it?
Yeah, because I feel it was for me, definitely. I definitely, sorry, Mom, I definitely did, psychoactive mushrooms and stuff like that.
Sorry, Mom.
In high school, I mean, I grew up in the Bay Area, right? So
did I.
The Grateful Dead concerts out in Mountain View. I grew up along the peninsula. What's considered
Oh my God, you're talking my language. I didn't realize we were both from there.
Yeah. And if you've ever been to like a Beta Breakers race in San Francisco, I mean, it's clear that culture will never die in that area, regardless of how many transplants are moving there. It will always be around. So what might be like avant-garde or beyond the cuff to other.
The thing about San Francisco is it's like the first point on the coast where the new comes.
Yeah.
And it's I grew up in San Jose, but I lived in San Francisco too, and it was especially in the day, it was just like basically anything goes here. Try not to hurt anybody else. Go for it. And it was a wonderful. First of all, there was in my time of growing up, the problems of racism were down. The gay question was irrelevant. San Francisco was a gay city. And people were experimenting with just about everything. And it was a pretty mellow environment, I have to say.
Right.
And, again, there was a different message then. And this is another thing that I'd like to discuss. And that is the hippies and the post-hippies, we were about love, man.
Yeah.
Ooh, baby, peace, man. And we really meant it. It was just getting together and being in peace, being in love. And today we seem to be a lot more violent and terrifying.
As your books explain, I think that there's definitely, because there's a level of collective vibrational innovation. I think it's in the land. I think Mama Pacific has a lot to do with the deeper interconnected sense of reality and multidimensional reality that's kind of normalized throughout the Bay. And I believe there's always a psychic attack going down on the area. There's a lot of things that were carried out to stop collective movements for the betterment of the whole nation, the whole world. A lot of the socio-political movements that took off in that region impacted how socio-political movements took off around the world throughout the 60s and 70s, right? And you even see that now with like the real food movement. A lot of people in Chicago would probably label me as a food snob, and the herbal dynamic is not as strong out here, which I think is so strange because there's so much herbal medicine that just grows everywhere throughout Chicago. But what was I saying? So because of that, I think there's something going on with like some archonic force that's always trying to create chaos and disruption.
How do you think the plant world, the plant community is responding to the overlay or the imprint of so much deliberate destruction?
I think you have to know how to use it. So when we are dealing with somewhere like the Northern California region, I mean, the redwoods, right? there's you know, with these 5G towers, there was this report. Who was I listening to? I think it was on the Richie Allen show, because he's starting to have more people on there talking about the 5G towers. I guess they're rolling out across the UK. And there was a man on there saying that they were cutting down these trees in this one area of the UK because they're going to start putting up these 5G towers. And his report was stating about how the trees disrupt the EMFs projected from these 5G towers. And so you take somewhere like, you know, the redwood forests of California. And so those redwoods, they're elders. They've been here far longer than, you know, America's ever existed. I truly think they're guardians. You know, there's also like the pines and the other conifer trees that are used, have been used for protective as well as respiratory, medicinally. But
and then there are the great sequoias. Let's not forget them.
Oh my God, they're beautiful, right? Those are the ones I miss from being out in Chicago. But they've had, if you look at you research and study the Native American tribes, you know, one of which is the Ohlone, throughout those areas, they've been used for, you know, hundreds of years through protective rites. You know, the way that they collect the resin from like pine or would burn it. And it's so, you know, because it's natural to travel between worlds and dimensions. And so you would definitely use that as something that you would carry with you or burn perhaps when you wake up in the morning, if you're going to go on a travel route for hunting or whatever, to burn late at night so that you don't have as much psychic interference when you fall asleep. I definitely do that all the time because I know that I'm a strong astral traveler. I've probably seen the world through my astral travels, I swear.
At least one.
Yeah, I've been places I've never been on foot. But the interesting thing is I've seen plants in other dimensions. I don't know if I was literally on another planet, but I've seen plants that they don't have on this planet. So I've been shown a lot of stuff through galactic, my galactic family that I believe I have. And that led me to really understand how multidimensional the plant kingdom is, because this all started with me studying, researching, ingesting plant infusions every day. I make so much stuff now. I make botanical incense. I make natural perfumes that I use to protect my force field on an energetic level. And it works because I'm starting, you know, a lot of empaths will be like, I hate this density of the third dimension. I get so tired. I get so bogged down. You know, I absorb people's energy so easily, and I don't ever want to leave the house.
I can take that.
I've been there. I totally understand that. I totally understand how it can be so overwhelming.
Well, the truth is,
yeah,
it's getting pretty rough. Empath or no empath,
yeah,
people are in some very bizarre states of mind.
Right. I'm just like surprised I'm even still in this country. One day I swear I'm going to do like you and Alan Oken and just get out of here, you know?
Well, I'll tell you what, I left America so long ago. How many years ago? 85.
Mm-hmm.
I moved to Italy, and now I'm in, as you know, I'm in the Azores, in a little paradise world that I'm in.
Yeah.
But, you know, I was an anti-war rebel, and I could never embrace the environment or the politics. And it feels like I keep hopping around trying to place with as much as possible neutral. But what I am seeing, I take that back. There's no neutrality on the planet when it comes to the war machine. But at least there are places like here that are more remote to it. But yeah, I see a lot of struggle in America right now, and you know, God bless you all for coping with it.
Thank you.
So can you, because it's just so vast, can you take us through an idea when you say plant infusions? Can you give us, like if you were, because I'm having trouble verbalizing this, because we've got preppers now, we've got people really concerned not only about survival from the ridiculous point of view of, you know, if they nuke the joint, quite honestly, there isn't a plant infusion that's going to work. Okay,
right.
But for your overall, if you were to say, here's what I would use to create let's say a traveler's kit
Yeah.
infusions that serve different levels of consciousness, from the well-being physically to the spirit and to the what we've started talking about as far as the galactic and the
Yeah.
exploratory medicines that are ayahuasca and some of these others. Take out your notes. We love it.
Okay.
And
So
I see all these bottles in the background. We're going to get to see some of your things.
I can definitely show you some of my things. Those are probably the incense that I make. When I traveled to Bali in 2015, and I was with Alan Oken in Bali. That's how I met him. Awesome elder. I started to really understand, and I heard this before researching, not in person, but researching how important it is to honor the land when you wake up in the morning, because Bali, they don't have really any street lights. It's like, how do people drive? And they drive fast. And there's like this energetic flow and tapestry that just moves very much. I feel interconnected to the element of water, right? But what happens is every morning they wake up, they light incense. They're thinking Ganesh, I should say, sorry. They're thanking other deities that are very interconnected to their culture and probably have been for like thousands of years. And that serves as kind of a guidance level throughout the day. So one of the things I started doing was grinding down some type of sage. Sometimes I mix some white sage, blue sage, sagebrush with like a resin, frankincense, or copal into the magic bullet, and adding saltpeter and acacia powder, and mixing a little bit. Saltpeter lights it, ignites it, so it's like a powdered down incense, which is what's in those jars. And so you don't have to it's not like a smudge bundle or anything that you have to keep lighting. You just put it in a little like heat proof small mini bowl and light it and offer it up to the land and the ancestors of the land. And I personally feel that especially in the area like the Chicago area, it's very it's older than Silicon Valley area that I grew up in, I feel. And so there's a lot of energy out here in the land. Chicago also has a very interesting occult history. And Lake Michigan is a portal. I don't know why a lot of, I talk about this all the time, locals think I'm nuts. But Lake Michigan has a portal over it exactly like the Bermuda Triangle. If you pull up,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, if you pull up the earth grids of the world and the earth chakras, you'll see one right over, it's more up north, in between, like, it goes up northern Illinois, up to Wisconsin, over to the western part of Michigan, and across the lake. And there's even certain flight patterns and that airplanes will take because things have disappeared over the decades. It's very underreported, but there's a lot of activity that happens over that lake. Chicago, although I debate this fact, because I think California definitely has its fair share of UFO sightings, or galactic sightings, I should say. I don't call them UFOs, they're galactics. Black Mountain in Western North Carolina is another area of heavy activity. But there was this website that voted Chicago #1 for galactic activity and like spacecraft sightings. So if you Google or YouTube search UFOs over Chicago, you're going to get a lot of people just videotaping the activity. So there's a lot of psychic dynamics that go on around here. And I feel that or psychic multidimensional dynamics. And I feel that the plant species the plant kingdom is very much interconnected to that. Because, I talk to plants and trees all the time. I don't really tell a lot of the locals that, but there's a lot.
Probably not a great idea. All right, so I interrupted you, and I do apologize. Oh, you were giving the list of the essences that you use to do that. You said saltpeter, and then I interrupted you. Can you give us the rest?
Okay. Yeah, and so this is all the stuff that I just blabbed on about. It's to honor those entities and those elements every morning when I wake up, like I learned from Bali, as they do. And I feel that helps protect me and keep me safe, as well as keep me open to messages and communications on multidimensional levels. So the most recent one I made, and I make them in accordance with astrological transits, right?
Wow.
I feel makes a difference. But I made one with sagebrush, blue sage, I used Aztec black copal, which I love.
I love copal too.
Yeah, and then acacia powder and the saltpeter, because just a little bit of saltpeter helps ignite it so it stays lit. The acacia powder helps it burn down into a mound. So, you know, a lot of people feel they have to shape it in a cone, or all you have to do is get a little bit and put it in a pile, and it will just light and stay and stick and just burn down. It's beautiful. And this is basically a foundational aspect of what I learned how to make incense through old-fashioned hoodoo root work. Is they make incense that way too, using
Is that hoodoo being from where?
Hoodoo being from the southern region of the Americas. Hoodoo root work is a form of magic that's very interconnected to the plant parts, because it helped, I guess I would say like 16 through probably 1800s, it was really popular. It helped to keep African Americans safe. A lot of African Americans ran away from slavery into the woods, or, you know, we were sequestered to the wood areas to depend on for food. And so a lot of the food and safety, honestly. So a lot of the knowledge of magic that came from like the Congo, Angola, Sudanese magic, and West Africa, we brought with us over here and integrated that into some understanding also of Native American mysticism, because we were definitely trading with them. It's very fascinating. It's
so vast, and your knowledge is so vast that it's a little bit mind-boggling.
It's okay.
I want to ask. No, it's not a little bit mind-boggling. It's before you go on.
Yes.
I know that you have a very limited amount of things that you actually sell or can make available to people.
Right.
Can we tell them now what that website is, and at the end we'll tell them again, just so that I don't forget?
Oh yeah, it's on Etsy, and you can find me under Naya360, NIYA360. And I also have an Instagram page on NIYA360.
Okay.
People message me. When they see me post stuff on Instagram, they'll message me, and sometimes they're looking for something specific. On Etsy as well, they'll message me. Sometimes they need something specific. And so a lot of stuff is just made to order. I used to print a lot of stuff and it would just sit there. So that's
fabulous.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were talking about putting together a conglomeration of essences or things that you feel, which we're looking at you as the expert, will benefit from in balancing all of these intense energies that are occurring. So we're starting with blessing the earth, which I do actually every day as well.
Beautiful.
And then what? And
so for like herbal infusions that you can take, because I definitely recommend, because the EMFs I feel attack our nervous systems, the CNS and the PNS, I think it's called like peripheral nervous system, which is interconnected to the autonomic nervous system, the fight or flight response, all of our endocrine system responses, right? And I feel like the EMFs attack that more than anything. I feel that's also intentional. So there's this whole area of herbal remedies that's called adaptogens, ADAPTOGENS, and Nervines, NERVINES. If you Google research a list of adaptogenic or a list of nervine herbs, you're going to get a whole lot of information on herbs that are specific to keeping us in our bodies, right, on the psychic level, keeping us grounded. And that's how, you form a level of aligned empowerment. And also helping us to nurture and care for our nervous systems. And within caring for our nervous systems, things that have been normalized, like anxiety, a whole litany of chronic issues that develop from us being in normalized and balanced states. I personally feel that the nervines and adaptogenic herbs help to combat that. So
what kinds of things do you personally recommend? Because it's one thing for me to go to a book and read about it. It's another thing to hear it from you.
So since you're in an area like Portugal, or a region like Portugal, even though you're on an island, you should have some type of access to lemon balm. If you don't, you could definitely grow it out there. Its origins are in the Mediterranean and also Iran. And when I list these countries, I encourage people to study the medicinal properties and how these plants are used within these cultures versus just looking it up from a Western herbalistic perspective, because you're going to get a lot more information. You're probably going to get scientific studies that actually conclude things, whereas Western medicine will list a whole lot of potential side effects and try and scare you away from taking it.
And can I add here that, of course, and I'm glad you said, since you're in Portugal, of course, it's going to be as important as it can be that when you look for these plants, you're looking for plants that are indigenous to your area wherever possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that you can grow as well, because I'm huge on restoration. If you're going to take from the earth, try and replenish it, right? And it helps you develop a relationship with the earth, which empowers you. So lemon balm can regulate an overactive thyroid. It can aid digestion, supports the liver and normalizes blood sugar, combats insomnia, which is a nervine property, especially insomnia that's related to anxiety. What I see happening with a lot of people in the States is that they're having a hard time sleeping. And so they're constantly asking for, what type of herbs will help you sleep. Of course, cannabis comes up all the time because sure, like indica cannabis will knock you out. But they don't like my response, because my response is always like, well, what's disrupting the sleeping pattern? What is it? What emotion is interconnected to it?
That's the point that I'm trying to make all the time. Medicating the manifestation is not solving the problem whatsoever. It's like, what is the cause of this, rather than treating the effect? Absolutely. Okay, so before you continue, what exactly is lemon balm? What is it?
It's a beautiful plant that kind of smells lemony. It's a green leafy plant. I think some of them flower, but I wish I had pictures for you, but
that's good, because when you said lemon balm, I was picturing some kind of creamy thing that had lemon zest in it. So it's important to identify these things.
Yeah, and a lot of people prefer to grow them in pots, because a lot of people that work with the land are far more knowledgeable than I working with the land, say that it's an invasive plant. And then there's this whole correspondence to plants that are invasive. It's showing that it's strong and it strengthens you. So watching how the plant grows and how it grows is as important as consuming it, because it's telling you, through growing, it's communicating to you.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also an antidepressant. It's an antiviral, which means that it combats viruses, anti-inflammatory, and it combats the herpes virus and cold sores, right?
Wow.
And this information is from Dr. Edward off of the Global Healing Center. So I'm just repeating what he says. I'm not providing.
So it's lemon. It's called lemon balm or lemon palm?
Lemon, Lemon, balm, B as in boy.
I never heard of this plant.
And so ask around the island. I'm sure, and if you can't find it, you can definitely grow it out there. You're very lucky to be in that type of environment. So the lemony scent of lemon balm aligns one deeply with past life experiences, relevant in present time. It's great for past life regression work related to balancing the karmic experiences of one's current life. Past life psychic skills can surface as well. Its nervine properties help to release tension and blocks that may stagnate spiritual growth, which I feel is really important at this time. It's also great for meditation. Its spirit helps us to release tension and understand past lessons. So that's the spiritual aspect of it. As far as the way in which you take it, there's always debates that go on in the herbal community about which way is the best way to consume, plant remedies, fresh or dry or sun-dried, tincture form, herbal infusion form. My thing is, based on the resources you have, what do you feel is most effective for you to get into some type of regimen to start including plant medicines in your daily lifestyle? For me, that's herbal infusions. My professor that certified me, Jeanne Rose, she's old school because she's been talking about herbalism since it saved her life from a potentially fatal car accident. in the 1960s, right? So she's, you know, she was there before the huge tincture craze. A lot of people, they might have, you know, like Muslims don't really do alcohol. So why would you, you know, prescribe them an alcoholic tincture? Other people might have issues with their liver, or like me, have, you know, had an inflamed pancreas. So I'm not really keen on, you know, having extra alcohol in my diet if I can help it.
Okay, but can you describe to us the difference of, because a lot of us don't know what you're talking about
I'm sorry.
as far as the
Yeah.
let's say the fine tuning of how these different,
Yeah.
there's a tincture and an infusion.
So there's
Explain that.
herbal infusion. So what makes a herbal tea herbal medicine is the amount of the herb that you use to steep it and the length of time that you steep it. So for herbal infusions, it would be, and I use mason jars because I feel they steep better than anything. I've tried like everything under the sun, from traditional like ceramic Chinese teapots to every type of, you know, teapot that's on the market in America over, you know, the past decade that I've been involved in this type of lifestyle. And I will say that old school mason jars, heat proof mason jars, work phenomenal. There's actually a YouTube video from Mountain Rose Herbs, which is an organic herbal farm out of Oregon that I get most of my herbal products from. And they have a video how to make a herbal infusion.
Great.
Which I can actually link it to the YouTube video to show people how easy it is. But you'll need a strainer to put over the cup that you pour the herbal infusion into. So the measurements are, for 8 ounces of boiling water, you steep 1 tablespoon of mixed herbs, however you use it, fresh or dry.
That sounds easy, and that is a infusion.
Mm-hmm.
And
Steep it
a tincture
for 30 minutes. Sorry?
A tincture, what's the difference?
A tincture is, so for the herbal infusion, it's important to steep it for at least 30 minutes, and you can steep it up to 24 hours. If it's summer, you can put it in the refrigerator, cap it, put it in the refrigerator. It's ready to go and strain in the morning. For a tincture, there's 2 different types of tinctures, and there's always debates about which one's better, right? There is the alcoholic-based tincture, which is made with alcohol like Everclear, that's 100 proof. Of course, people that are sticklers about organics are starting to understand that how impure alcoholic beverages are. But I think like there's some type of medicinal, like plant-based alcohol that's specific, that people who manufacture tinctures, they actually use like this plant-based alcohol, and that's all they'll use. They won't be like the homemade herbalist like myself who would go to the supermarket and look for 100% proof alcohol. But you take, and it's usually made with roots of plants, because a lot of herbalists believe that you cannot extract the medicinal components from infusions in the way that you can a tincture using the alcohol. I personally disagree. And there's, on a vibrational level, there's a lot to be said about alcohol changing the vibrational essence of
there's that,
but hey, if it works for you and your life has been saved by a tincture, who am I to tell you the tincture won't work?
What do you think the difference is from the point of view of efficacy or potency between the two, or is there?
A tincture actually saved my life.
Wow.
First week of January, because whatever that crazy virus that's going on, it's still going on. A lot of people say it's the flu. I don't think that's just the flu. I almost had to go to the hospital. I was traveling with friends. Luckily, she's a medicine woman, very talented medicine woman. Her name is Kat Sanchez. She's out of Whittier, California. A lot of people know her by the name of Echo Cat. But because we were in Yucca Valley, there's a lot of herbal stores, again, California and the interconnection of the herbalism as being pretty much mainstream at this point. And so there were respiratory tinctures that I was able to get so I can make it back home. But I had never in my life had respiratory issues like that week. And it was interesting because when we were out at night in Yucca Valley, the chemtrail, not only were the chemtrails going strong during the day, but they they were spraying the chemtrails at night. And I was just like, wow, you know.
It's something that people don't realize. I mean, and you know, from the early books, I first started talking about the chemtrails in 1996.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or 97, when I don't know exact date on that, but it was 20 years ago. And over these years, I don't think there's anything that frustrates me more.
Oh my God.
I wake up in the morning, fortunately here, it's the rare occasion. But when I was living in Rome, they're chemtrailing day and night. And I'm going to digress here for a moment because a few people talk about this, but I ask people who don't believe or do believe in chemtrails, have you stopped to reckon what kind of massive undertaking globally it is to keep that many planes going 24/7 over just about every single spot on the planet? I even saw chemtrails in 1997 over Tibet.
Oh my God, that's insane. That's so sad.
Tibet. I was like, this can't be real.
Over
Peru, like there was no tomorrow. So that dispels the idea that it's only highly populated areas. But you know, this is the chemtrail problem with the respiratory system is probably one of the greatest health problems we have on this planet.
Absolutely, absolutely. I couldn't believe it. And so, Kat Sanchez, of course, because she's a medicine woman, she was outside, and thank God where we were staying, there was a bunch of ephedra plants growing locally. So she got some of those along with some juniper berries and was, you know, cooking up infusions that way for me, because the juniper plant, the juniper berries, which is native to certain regions of California, along with the ephedra, they help not only resolve respiratory issues, but ephedra, which actually has been outlawed in the United States. It's so much bigger than cannabis, and I wish people would realize this. Ephedra heals asthma. Ephedra helped to heal my asthma along with mullein root. I had lifelong asthma, and what is it? An inhaler that, you know, gives you heart palpitations and all that craziness, the steroids. I was doing that. Allergies was one of the last issues that I had. To get off of the medication and learn how to treat it naturally when it rose up. So thank God for her, because I feel because of her and the plants that were on the land where we were at, and the herbal shops that her and her husband drove me to, I did not have to go to the hospital. And I was able to make it back home despite, I mean, this was, you know, part of the viruses that were just floodgating all of California across the country that were killing people. And I know, like, people die every year of the flu, and people were telling me, oh, it's no big deal. I never normalized sickness. I do not think that there's anything normal about chronic sickness or viruses and all this stuff. I mean, I understand humanity's had pandemics and all this, but the way in which American society has normalized sickness and what I call a deaf culture, I think that's kind of pathological, and there's something wrong with that, you know? So,
well, if you consider, first of all, that it's being induced, we've got the chemtrails, we've got every other weaponized viruses, and
absolutely,
after so many decades of taking antibiotics like candy, these viruses are just becoming supercharged warriors.
Absolutely.
It's all too much. All right, so I can see that you and I are going to have more than one dialogue together, because, you know, it's so much wonderful information, and we're going to run out of time. But anyway, we keep going. All right, so back to I had a question. You said ephedra is illegal, but you got it. So what's the deal on that?
Well, I think the reason why ephedra became illegal is because it heals asthma. It's a respiratory system.
Yeah, that's why everything becomes illegal, right?
But it also helps people lose weight. So what was happening is people were again, like with the ayahuasca, you know, when you're going to take certain plant medicines, dosage is key, and you have to learn how to take it. You have to know your body enough. You have to actually stay and be present in your body enough on a habitual level to understand how the plants are working through you and know when to stop, or be under the guidance of a certified herbalist or a holistic integrative physician, you know, at a health clinic that understands how these plants work. Are there
a lot of these people around?
Well, the herbal shop that I was taken to in Yucca Valley, the lady was a nurse who owned the shop. And so, but again, this is California, right? So
Exactly.
I think there's a lot of things changing with even people in the medical profession saying, you know, and this is ridiculous. Like, you're inducing fear of plants when they actually heal. So a lot of people, there was this like epidemic going on where like people who were trying to lose weight, and ephedra also has like an aphrodisiac proponent, so it's a mood enhancer. People were like mass consuming it and ending up in the hospital with like heart palpitations or something. I'm always skeptical with these outlaw justifications, because it's like, what was the person's health like before this? Were they on other types of medication that had complications? You never hear about pre-existing conditions when it comes to herbalism, but you'll always hear about pre-existing conditions when insurance companies want to charge people up the yin-yang or deny people service, you know, medical services. So there's just so much propaganda, misinfo going on.
Well, there's a war, let's face it, the silent war against anything alternative, and we know the reasons why, so I'm going to try to...
But ephedra is spelled EPHEDRA. It's been used for thousands of years in Chinese, TCM, traditional Chinese medicine. And if you live in Southern California, you can grow it yourself because it's indigenous to the region. So nobody could say like you're breaking the law when a plant that has grown there for thousands of years, suddenly decides to prop up. That's its home, that's where it's from, you know what I mean? But an area like Illinois, you'll probably get in trouble.
All right, let's take a giant leap here and talk about cannabinoid oil and cannabinoid essence, because obviously this is a very important topic today.
Yes.
And I'm out of America, so I don't know. I know that there's legalized everything, and so we don't need to go into that aspect of whether it's legalized or not legalized, but rather, what is your understanding of the essence of cannabinoid oil for healing? Obviously, cancer is one of the issues that's come up, and the wonderful work that Rick Stevens has done. But can you give us some insights from your point of view about cannabinoid oil?
I think it helps with chronic, like arthritic conditions. There's some, but again, you can't just isolate it to the cannabinoid oil to resolve all your issues. It's like, well, what's causing the inflammation in the first place? Is it your diet? Is it some type of repetitive psychological emotional pattern? Some type of imbalance and alignment between mind and body, because it's all interconnected. So I think the cannabinoid oil is great. Especially I've heard like children who have, or it might be actually smoking the cannabis or taking it in like some other form, but children who have seizures, how it's helped with that.
It's amazing. It's amazing for seizures.
And then, parents who have had to flee the state, right? I mean, there's to get their children certain types of holistic treatments using cannabis in other states. I mean, that's just so.
Well, there's that amazing story of the father who had his and there's a video out. Yeah. His newborn, his son was having seizures like every 2 minutes or something beyond fathomable, and he was dosed out on every kind of med, and finally this man started administering cannabinoid oil, and I think he was up on charges, but needless to say, his son is now healthy, and it's just amazing that we can't take care of ourselves and our children. But
he's up on charges. Yeah, that's
he's up on charges. Some people have to flee the country because
absolutely,
and this question, of course, keeps resurfacing, and it's like, why are people being charged for using holistic alternatives on their own bodies? And we know the answer. It's big pharma's in control.
Absolutely.
All right, back to your wonderful kit of things that you recommend people to have.
Okay, so the second one I wanted to talk about today is Tulsi, which is basil, right? And so areas where basil has been used indigenously for eons include Kenya, India, and Indonesia. Of course, there's more because basil is also, you could probably grow various types of basil where you live. You're very lucky.
I do grow basil because I'm an Italian. I can't live without basil.
Yep, absolutely. I wish I can grow all the varieties myself, but I'm glad that's what intuited me to talk about basil. So it's a powerful adaptogen known for balancing the body, allowing women to more easily adapt to external stressors, which is important in American culture. Tulsi is labeled as an elixir of life because it promotes longevity, right? The spiritual properties include the power to transmute anger into a more benevolent outlook, to understand and know the emotional self better, basically the emotional body, and in turn enhance one's ability to use intuitive knowledge to make better decisions. It enhances the power of all the chakras through balance, as well as the connection between the etheric and physical body.
Wow.
It enhances vivid and lucid dreaming by making one more aware within said dream. So you're more aware of your lucid and vivid dreams, and also aware within those dreams. The awareness is expanded. And it's great for grounding in general to the power of lunar energy and strong lunar Cancer transits. And one of the reasons why I wanted to bring that up is because this year on an astrological level, we have this preponderance of Pluto in Capricorn, moving towards aligning and conjuncting Saturn in Capricorn. And right now I think Mars is in Capricorn.
Holy doodle. I'm Capricorn.
And that's the planet, that's the old man Saturn. There's a preponderance of Saturnian energy. So every month when the moon moves, through the astrological signs and moves through Cancer, there's all these, which is its home, right? There's all these oppositions that take place there's this opposing dance between the Saturnian old man and the lunar Cancer energy. And so it really exemplifies the relationship that one has with their emotional body and the intelligence of their emotional body. So people who are disconnected from their emotional body, they're being challenged to move more into alignment with that and communicate from that stance. And so it's a real treat. It's a very interesting dance. But one of the herbs that can help with that alignment is Tulsi, because it empowers the emotional body.
And do you use that every day?
I love mixing when I have time. I love mixing it in infusions with like sage leaf and moringa leaf for mental functioning, for mental balance. But it's also very nutritional as well, as you probably know in Italian. It's definitely a digestive system tonic.
Yes.
And it's adaptogenic, meaning that it helps to rebalance all body systems that are somehow imbalanced through extended periods of time. There's a saying that it also opens the heart and mind and distributes the energy of love and devotion. So it's definitely good for the heart chakra. That's from Ladd and Fraley in 1987. People were writing about Tulsi. So for all the people that are recently hopping on the bandwagon of herbalism, Tulsi is one of those herbs that's been studied for a really long time.
So what's the difference between Tulsi and basil?
Tulsi Tulsi, there's three different strains. It's a strain of basil that comes out of India, and there's three different strains of it. One they named after Vishnu. Another one I think is named after Krishna. So they name them after the gods.
Okay, gotcha.
In certain regions of India, they will actually place or grow the Tulsi basil plant in their front yard or put it somewhere in their home as a guardian, because they believe the actual spirit of the plant. These plants are treated like entities in other cultures, like different types of species.
Well, they're treated as the beings they are, respected for the energy of the beings and the spirit that they are.
With reverence. And so it's placed like in a certain area or region of the home to bring blessings and protect. So
that's amazing. I use essential oils of basil, but I didn't know there was this specific plant. I'm going to look to see how I can get my hands on that.
Yeah. And a good concoction for allergy season, if you have a diffuser, electronic diffuser in your home, the ones that you let pour the water in, and then the water kind of mists out through the home to clean the air. If you use a couple of drops of tea tree essential oil, a couple of drops of eucalyptus essential oil, and a couple of drops of just regular basil, not the Tulsi Ayurvedic type, regular basil essential oil, that pretty much takes care of allergies, microbes and pathogens in your home that create the allergic responses, which is huge in Chicago because the trees are about to start waking up out here. So
Yeah, I just want to add that I've recently read and investigated that tea tree, however, can be very overbearing for dogs for some reason. So,
yeah.
be aware of that if you got dogs like I do in the house, that
Yes,
it can overwhelm their
yes.
olfactory systems.
Oh, thank you for telling me that.
Well, I'm not trying to teach you anything about herbs, but
Yeah.
I recently found this information out because I use tea tree a lot, and I've
Nice.
filled a bit because of the dogs, because I read
Good.
some pretty knowledgeable information about
Yeah. No, it's impossible to know everything about plant. I mean, how many lifetimes have I been, trying to learn through them? I wonder often.
that. Well,
So
you are a definite encyclopedia botanica, at
it's
least.
always an exchange. Thank you.
It's so refreshing also that you bring in the astrological aspect, which is very exciting. I mean, this is very exciting information, and I'd like you to, if you could just give us some insights on how you tie these in. I mean, come on, this is such a gigantic field. Would you be saying that in certain astrological densities, or that's not the word I should probably be using, interactions, you would actually prefer a different essence because of the astrological dynamic at work?
Well, I'm sensitive to environments and energies, cosmic planetary energies. I've kind of been that way all my life, especially lunar energy. So it might depend in part on your chart. My chart is ruled by lunar energy, and it's got a ton of Plutonian energy in it, right? So everybody in America thinks that Pluto is bad, 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 and it's not. It deals with the power of the soul. It's actually
Absolutely. Who thinks Pluto is bad? Give me a break.
No, I'm having a Pluto transit. I'm gonna die.
Oh, for goodness sakes.
You might have a spiritual death and rebirth, and how awesome is that? I mean, do you want to go on your whole life inauthenticated, or do you want to move into a certain level of empowerment? I prefer the empowerment. So yeah,
It just always whacks me out when people get so stuck in definitions that that there's not room to expand on the meanings.
Yeah.
And thank you for doing that.
Yeah, exactly. So I can definitely sense changes when it happens. I think because the lunar energy rules my chart, it's obvious to me when the moon changes into different astrological signs on a monthly basis. I look at how the people in my environment are impacted by that, what people tend to focus on. During Moon and Gemini transits, people become more talkative. During Moon and Scorpio transits, they become more, they personalize stuff a lot more because now you're feeling things more deeply. You can't just stay surface anymore. So,
right. But how does that translate to the use of the plant essences?
But what a lot of people throughout the centuries that are involved in magic have done, and what a lot of cultures, I think, have done indigenously, is somehow they corresponded certain plants to certain planets, planetary intelligences. So there's a correspondence wherein Damiana is interconnected to Pluto. So during heavy Plutonian transits, I like to create Damiana concoctions, which is, I believe that's another plant. It grows in North America, but it also grows in the Mediterranean too. And there's a lot to be said about Damiana being interconnected as an aphrodisiac to the reproductive system and reproductive health, as well as like mental balance and health. And Plutonian energy also being interconnected to reproductive health, although Western society tends to sexualize that power. But there's so much to second chakra reproductive power than just sexualizing it or sexuality, or even how you integrate and interact through the power of sexuality. There's a lot more there. The Ayurvedic in India, the Ayurvedic texts totally understand this. Here in America, we don't. But that's because we're controlled. American society likes to program and control us by our lower three chakras. So surprise.
That's exactly right. What better way to control somebody to make sure their lower chakras are completely under.
Right.
Okay, let's go back to your collection of things we'd like to have, and let us know now what your next suggestion is after basil, please. Tulsi.
Okay, so I also wrote about Blue Lotus a little bit. And so because, it's clearly it's a plant that's interconnected to Egypt. It's also connected to Guinea, which is on the west coast of Africa, Zimbabwe, Asia, and Australian Aboriginal medicine. I don't know if people know about, there's this weird interconnection, and I often wonder what was the communication between ancient Egypt and that what's considered today Australian Aborigines, because there's a lot of artifacts that are similar, and just blows my mind. But the Aboriginal interconnection to Blue Lotus goes back like 40,000 years. I don't know why we're stuck on this like 5,000 year historical timeline. I wish we'd get off it. Even
well,
when
it's like, it's like let me interject this here. Both the pyramids now predate the Great Pyramids. They're still trying to say that this is bogus, it's a hoax. And guys, this wonderful Sam Osganovich is inside the pyramid. There are tunnels, the whole bit, but it's still a hoax. Okay. Yeah. And he said that he was visited by experts from Egypt Archaeological Department who are desperately trying to poo-poo it because, they've got it all very comfortably categorized. In answer to your comment, we don't want to disrupt the structure of the belief system that they've put in place for people to believe in a certain way. But how exciting that these things are surfacing now. We are seeing these breaking all these timelines and all of these descriptive ideas of history with gigantic leaps back. I mean, look at the Osirian in Egypt. It's at least 75,000 years old.
Right. And that would make more sense, versus like the 5,000-year-old timeline. Even in Ghana, they say that their herbal medicine goes back 60,000 years.
How exciting.
And I want to know about this stuff that goes back 60,000
years. Especially because, the earth was so much more pure. Right. So imagine how much more potent they were, how much more, and people were so much closer to the earth, how vital these plant essences were to everything, not just like you said, not just the level of well-being, but the spiritual psychic experience, the connection, galactic connection. It's remarkable. I'd love to pop back in there for a few weeks and visit.
Absolutely. There was no separation. It was all interconnected. And I feel like the separation is what handicaps us, the dualistic polarization, perceptual reality. So speaking of the Aborigines in Australia, it is said to be the flower of women, birth, and health. That's what they call it through today. But it is symbolic of and represents life and the power of the Nile in Egypt. And of course, the Nile bestowed life, so that would make sense. So within those descriptive correspondences alone, it's no coincidence that in the magical, mystical realms that Blue Lotus would be interconnected to water and the lunar element, right? Because so that's kind of where those things come from. Like, how is it interconnected to a planet? Who thought of that? Is it true? I believe it is. So,
and it's so integral to the Egyptian experience and magic, ancient Egyptian magic, and all of the storyline of Egypt, pharaonic Egypt. The Blue Lotus is prominent, dominant everywhere.
Offered to the gods, right? You can't
get. I think they were also experimenting with it to be doing astral journeying, however they interpreted that to be.
Yeah. And this is one, this is one, sorry about that. This is one that I drink at night before bed because I feel it also helps me with my, it helps me to cultivate and understand more my psychic side of self and my dreams that I have, or, astral travel. But traditionally, it's used to relieve pain, increase memory, improve circulation, which means it's interconnected to the heart. And there's a lot, so then we're dealing with Mat, right? The weighing of the feather in the heart in ancient Egypt. It also enhances one's libido and creates euphoric states. In Zimbabwe, the Blue Lotus is said to arouse the spirits. It strengthens the third eye and crown chakras, clearly, right? Interconnecting you into higher psychic and universal energies. The blue lotus in Buddhism symbolizes the victory of the spirit over the senses, intelligence, and wisdom of knowledge. It is generally represented as a partially open bud whose center is unseen, the embodiment of the perfection of wisdom. And it's adaptogenic, rebalances your endocrine system, particularly adrenal stress, which is important if you have a mainstream lifestyle in America. You need some adrenal tonics. It's also an antidepressant and a reproductive tonic. So powerful.
Great. Is there anything left in this daily kit?
There's also, of course, so for the Americas and the West Indies, Passionflower, which is one of my favorites, because you can grow it. I've seen it grown like everywhere, and I love it. Even in Asian countries, I've seen Passionflower grow. It combats insomnia. It's a nervine, pain reliever, liver tonic, lowers blood pressure, is an antispasmodic, antidepressant, anti-anxiety, reproductive tonic. It combats postpartum depression, and it's also child safe. So for all the, children that allegedly have conduct disorder and all this stuff, when they're usually just responding to EMFs and the craziness of their environment, why not have them try a little passionflower tea? There's no side effects. So this releases repetitive thought patterns, activates heightened awareness and clarity of Christ consciousness, channeling and clairvoyance, protects in an adaptogenic way from electromagnetic frequencies emitted via tech devices that create biological stress on every cell in the body. And when there is difficulty with greater awakenings into levels of higher consciousness, this is eased because stagnant energy is released. So that's a little bit of the power of Passionflower. And the reason why it's interconnected to Christ consciousness, I think, is mainly interconnected to when the Spanish came to the Americas. They saw the flower and they were so mesmerized by it that they thought, it's the passion of the Christ. It has to be from God. It has to be Christ consciousness. And I think it was probably the vibrational energy of the Passionflower actually working on them.
Wow.
Yeah, it stimulates the crown chakra, moving energy in both directions, vibrates with the 6th and 8th chakras. So the 8th chakra, there's chakras beyond the 7 ones that were taught here in the States. And I have my, reasons for why we're only taught 7 when there's more than that. But the 8th chakra is the doorway between the soul, higher self, and the earth, lower self. Well, not lower like in density, but just your whole persona here on earth. What else does it do? It strengthens the kidney meridian, which is important. The kidney meridian is interconnected to the reproductive system, the left side of your chest.
And, we've got plenty of people with kidney problems considering all the meds people are taking.
Yeah, there's a wide litany of kidney tonics within the plant kingdom. Passionflower also cleanses the soul body, attunes etheric, emotional, and mental bodies, and it's highly effective during Chiron transits. So.
Oh, wow. Thank you for that. All right, here's a question that somebody, I had people send in their questions ahead of time, and one of them was Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
So, hi, Rachel, when you're seeing this is for you. She asked to ask you, what about support for the menopause time, natural plant support for menopause?
Sure. I would say that maca root is one of those. It's an adaptogenic, and it has some type of reproductive toning type of dynamic, but it also has aphrodisiac qualities. So it's got something going on psychoactively that I think helps to rebalance the mind, interconnected to whatever regions of the brain are constantly sending signals to from the reproductive system, and helping to balance out that level of hormonal functioning. There's also an herb that's called, or a root that's called black cohosh, that is indigenous to the Americas, Northern America, I think, mainly. And that helps with like hot flashes. It also helps to balance out the hormonal functioning, is my understanding. Damiana is another one that women find effective during menopausal states. I would actually mix the damiana with the, what is it called? Chickweed, because chickweed helps resolve hot flash issues. So if you
Okay.
make a little bit of damiana with chickweed in an herbal infusion, organic, of course. And if you're here in the States, you can get that from Mountain Rose Herbs, unless you know a local organic herbal farmer. If you have the luxury of living in Western North Carolina or somewhere along the Appalachian Mountain region, there's a lot of organic local herbal farmers out there that just are connected to the land. And it's a really lucky region because, you know, you've got all that crystal quartz in the soil, gemstones. I mean, and then plants are growing on top of that. It's my favorite region for like botanicals.
Yeah. Oh, wow. All righty, great. And for Carmel, hi, Carmel. She asked, could you ask about any beneficial plant remedies for high blood pressure?
Yeah, so I think the last one that I have here, which is reishi medicine, is a cardiovascular tonic. First of all, high blood pressure, hibiscus is fantastic. I don't have any type of spiritual stuff written down about hibiscus, but it lowers high blood pressure and it normalizes the cholesterol levels. So
in fact, I've been told to be careful because I have low blood pressure, and people have told me, wait a minute, don't be drinking all that hibiscus.
You do have to be careful. Yes, I've experienced that myself, but there's something about it that I love because you see it used in cultures in very hot regions like Egypt, Morocco, Northern Africa. It's a staple. You know, a staple.
Yeah, I get bags of hibiscus like this to bring back, excuse me, from Egypt.
Yeah, so it does something about it. It helps us sustain in drastic levels of heat. It has high levels of vitamin C in it too. And then in the cold winter, because of the high levels of vitamin C, it helps to combat colds and things of that nature. It's also a cardiovascular system tonic, which is awesome, right? It's good for your heart. So definitely hibiscus, but the reishi is adaptogenic. It's a cardiovascular, endocrine, and immune system tonic. Antifungal, antibacterial, anti-tumor, anti-anxiety. It also helps with the liver and digestive system. And it's a spiritual mushroom for whatever reason. And I've definitely take reishi off and on, you know, throughout the year. All the ancient like Taoist mystics in Chinese medicine and in Japan and Korea, they love the reishi mushroom. There's Taoist art that depicts the reishi mushroom as being a bridge between heaven and earth. So there's this constant reverence of this plant as extremely sacred because of the component, the spiritual and psychic component it opens one up to and aligns with. So if they want something that will help normalize blood pressure and open them up on a more psychic spiritual level, then I would say reishi mushrooms definitely a way to go.
Okay, and I have one more question, and then we're going to have to start wrapping this up, which I hate to do. Well, Rebecca says, I love rosemary and have several bushes. I'd love to know more about what to do with it. So we do know the I don't want to say sedative, but the relaxing aspect of, I have rosemary under the pillow all the time.
Oh, I love
but
rosemary.
Can you expand on that and give us some more ideas about how to work with rose?
Sure.
I was thinking of lavender.
Is it lavender or rosemary?
No, it's lavender that I have under the pillow, but she's asking about rosemary. Can you give us?
Absolutely. So rosemary is great in that it does have relaxing effects, but I feel it's more of like a rebalancer, so to speak. I have it actually in a respiratory system tonic that I make, combined with like mullein leaf and clove and ginger, because it helps keep the respiratory system balanced and clear.
Right.
But it's a heart system and cardiovascular tonic. It helps. It's great with blood circulation and heart health. There's also, and it's great with mental functioning. It helps one keep a clear mind, even though it's a little relaxing. But I feel that there's something to it that's also like detoxifying, because it's used in herbal baths to help like detox. Well, maybe because it's used with bath salts to help detoxify the body and align everything on a psychic and spiritual and physical level. So it's a beautiful plant. A lot of herbalists will use the flowers to make flower essences. to help with rebalancing the mind and spirit as well. But so you can use it in herbal infusion form as a respiratory system tonic or as a mental tonic, so that halfway through the day, if you feel fatigued, you can drink a little bit of that, mix maybe some licorice root into it, which is an adaptogenic herb, licorice root and clove, if you like the clovey.
Don't like clove.
Okay. Or ginger, or if you want to just keep it simple, you know, it by itself, it's very refreshing in my humble opinion, you know, but I drink stuff that probably a lot of people will be like, it doesn't taste good. So, but yeah, I hope that definitely answers the question.
Oh, I just can't even tell you how hard it is to try to wrap this up, because I feel like we just brushed over.
Scratching the surface, yeah.
But would you honor us to come back on and we'll just take a part 2 here of expanding more on your knowledge?
Absolutely.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. I'd love to actually see some of maybe you could show us some of these different plants, and we can kind of get experiential with you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because I'd love to see you actually make a tincture or an infusion, and
I'll have one ready.
All right, wonderful. Okay, well, oh my God, I'm so impressed. I really thank you. It's just wonderful to just drink in all of this wonderful knowledge. I mean,
welcome.
God, you are someone very, very special, and I'm just delighted. I'm delighted the way that we've connected from whenever that was. I think the Syrians connected us.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're both from the same area, so that speaks volumes.
Yeah, and I certainly have, like you've been watching my stuff, I've been watching yours, and it's just wonderful that we finally cemented it. I know it's a friendship that will grow, and I'm delighted.
Absolutely.
All right, so please let's give everybody now all your information, because I know everybody's going to want to know how to reach you and how to find out more about
yeah, sure,
a myriad things. So please, and then what we'll do is when I put this up, I'll be sure to put the links up too.
Okay.
But if you just tell everyone now.
Yeah, so I guess the best way to reach me would be, I don't have like an official website because I do really small scale work. I'm still in occult training and it takes a lot of my time, and then I still have a full-time gig to pay the bills, you know, so I always have like a small handful of clients, and I prefer it because I feel like you can be more attentive that way. But so my Etsy site, it's like etsy.com, the / and then Naya360. Instagram, you can find me under my email address or under Lea, Lea Jones, Jones. And those are the two places where people that are interested in herbalism contact me the most. My Facebook page is a little bit political, so that's
all right. I'm a little bit political, to say the least.
But I definitely post a lot about herbal medicine in Facebook. My Facebook page is definitely all things that are revolutionary to liberate everybody.
Well, I'm sure that people who have listened and felt your heart and mind are going to want to explore that with you too. So okay. I'm sure there'll be people saying, who is this Lea Jones person, that may not have Okay, so Lea, is there any last minute concept, idea, or wish that you would like to share with the people that are watching you now before we sign out?
Actually, let's see. I think I want to read from something that you wrote in the 90s that's interconnected to the plant spirits, where it says, where the actual Syrians say, "We are calling you to arise from your knees and stand tall against the winds of change, for your fears can only be conquered when, as free-thinking men and women, you understand that you are the power and the blessings of light. Your very architecture teaches you that the soles of your feet are meant to contact the earth, and we remind you that that is how you draw the power of the music of Gaia, the warm, into your souls." And so that's where the plant remedies are completely interconnected. Thank you so much.
I want you to know that while you're reading that, I'm getting this. Thank you. That's very, very generous of you to read that as you're closing. All right, everybody. This has been an extraordinary, seriously, extraordinary time with the wonderful Lea Jones, and she will be back. She's agreed. So we will do a part 2 and explore more of this mind and all this wisdom. And until then, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And I don't have a fixed time schedule how this is going to happen, but you can count on me doing more and more Beyond the Matrix video clips for you. Wanting to bring controversial, yes.
Absolutely.
Mind expanding, yes. Political, absolutely. Shake up information that will help you look at the world in a different way and hopefully in a better way, because we need a little fresh air around here. And that is what we've just experienced with Lea Jones. Thank you, sister. It's been a joy and an honor.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon.
You too. Take care. Bye, sweetheart. Bye, everyone. And let me close with giving thanks to all the galactic nations, all of our ancestors, the plant kingdom, and the great and mighty tree nations. Blessings.